Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to install the Xtreme-DI high pressure fuel pump on this 2020 Ford Explorer ST. Alright, so what you're going to need for the job, I have it all laid out here. You're going to need an E7 Torx bit. You're going to need a 3/16 bit. It can be on a T-handle or in 3/8 drive, it doesn't matter, but this one's 1/4 inch. And then a 6mm hex bit, 10mm short, 10mm long, 13mm deep, a ratchet, various lengths of extensions. It's always nice to have a magnet in case you drop stuff, which happens a lot. And then also a mirror so you can see behind stuff in the engine bay. And then you'll need a small pry bar at some point. And also this 3/8 quick disconnect tool. It doesn't have to be plastic, it can be metal, anything that you have that's 3/8. Also, you'll need your pigtail, and then your 2 1/4 bolts, your 2 M8 by 30mm bolts, they're socket head cap screws. Obviously, you'll need the Xtreme-DI high pressure fuel pump, and have some rags handy to clean up fuel and stuff like that. All right, first step, you're going to take this cover off. You're going to disconnect the negative battery terminal. Just like that. All right, so we've already removed them, but the first step is to take these bolts out of these spots here that hold the heater hose assembly on. So there's one right here, and there's one right there. All right, so we've already removed this piece here. This is the foam insulation for the high pressure fuel pump. It's a real pain in the butt. As you can see, this one's been torn. It takes a lot of maneuvering to get it out, but you might have to muscle it out of there. Basically, you're gonna have to pull from the bottom out and remove this piece. All right, so the next step is we're gonna remove the electrical connector on the high pressure fuel pump. Just use this tool just to unlock the connector. And you're gonna press down. You're gonna press down on this little guy, this little tab right there, and pull out and get it out of the way. All right, so the next step, you're gonna remove these nuts that hold the top of the bracket onto the high pressure fuel pump. So this is that second nut in the back. You just gotta slip your deep 13mm into the back of the bracket. There's a little slot for it, a hole where you can slip the socket down into, but that's where it's at. We've already loosened the bracket, that's why it's moving around so much, but just to show you where it's at, there's an opening for it right there. All right, so the next step, there is a 10mm bolt that's buried under here. We've already loosened the bracket. It's gonna be the hardest part of the job, getting that one 10mm bolt out. We've got it loose already. I don't wanna go in there and show you exactly where it's at because you need the mirror to see it. I'll show it to you on the bracket when we take it out. So this is where the mirror comes in handy. If you slip it down underneath here, you see that black round circle there. That's where that bolt sits. All right, so next what you want to do is you're going to take the bracket and you're going to lift it straight up so that it gets off of those studs right there, these studs. And now that it's off, you can actually slide it. So what I did here is I kind of maneuvered the bracket back towards the passenger compartment, and then I slipped on my quick disconnect tool. That way I can disconnect the low pressure fuel line. All right, so once the low pressure line's disconnected, I put a rag under it to collect any fuel that might come out. It's gonna be quite a bit. I push the bracket back here just so it's out of the way so we can get the pump off. The next step is gonna be to loosen this nut here on the high pressure outlet of the pump. So we've already loosened it. So you're gonna loosen this, it's a 17mm nut. And then what you wanna do is there's a little loom here, this piece, it's kind of like a pop fitting. It just tightens down onto the stud here. You want to disconnect that so that you can move your line around. It kind of puts pressure on it. So you want to disconnect this so that it's out of the way. And then there's two 10mm nuts that connect to the line here. There's one right down there, as you see with my finger. That's the one you want to take off. There's also another one in the back there. So if you see that right there, that little stud sticking out, you want to take the 10mm nut off of that as well so you can move the line around. Just to make things easier, I like to pop off this PCV hose here. It's a little push fitting, so you just push that and pull out. Set it to the side. And then, like I said, this 10mm nut's going to come out that holds the high pressure line onto the engine. All right, so next step is loosening these 13mm nuts that hold the high pressure fuel pump onto the engine. You want to do it in intervals of maybe a quarter to a half a turn on each side, because it's sitting on a cam lobe, so there's going to be pressure holding it on there. You don't want to release one side at a time. You want to do it kind of simultaneously, back and forth. So now that you've removed the high pressure fuel pump and the bracket, that crash bracket, you're going to use that E7 Torx to remove these studs here. Alright, so what you're going to do now that you have those disconnected, those nuts, is you're going to pull up on it and twist this like that, that bracket, so that you can put on your nuts. Have a little bit of dexterity here. So you're going to put those two 10mm nuts in the kit. You're going to put those on here as a spacer to lift that line up so that it meets up with the pump. Oh, sorry for that. And then you'll tighten those down with your ratchet and socket. That's how it kind of should look.
That's the actual pump. In this case it's a 60. That's the base plate, and there's two O-rings. So there's the red O-ring, and then there's a square black O-ring. So the red O-ring goes around the pump body. You will get it shipped like this, and the function of the red O-ring is to seal the pump body against the base plate. And you can rotate the pump body and the base plate. So the black O-ring is meant to seal the base plate against the valve cover. So it goes around like this. And it's square because usually the valve cover has a tapered hole and we need to seal the complete area. So every XDI kit comes with a set of bolts. It's two short ones and two long ones. The two short ones are meant to bolt the base plate to the valve cover, and the two long ones are meant to bolt the pump body to the actual base plate. So now when you pull it out of the box, you might be wondering, how am I supposed to access the bolts of the base plate? And you're going to be tempted to pull it off, mount the base plate on the valve cover, and then after the fact try to put the pump in. Problem, what's going to happen is that your O-ring will not sit center. And then, I'm exaggerating, it's going to sit like this. And you try to put the pump in, after the fact, you're going to pinch the O-ring and it's not going to seal. So what you always have to do is keep the pump and the base plate assembled. Keep the square O-ring underneath. And then spin the pump on the base plate so that you can access the holes. take the short bolts, screw them down, tighten the base plate to the valve cover.
Put on your ratchet. Alright, so now that we got the flange bolts in, we're going to go ahead and clock it so that the high pressure outlet somewhat lines up with the high pressure line. And then we're going to slip in our 1/4 bolts through the top of the pump. Like that. And you're going to move it until you'll feel it where they actually sink into the holes. You can start them by hand. Now once the high pressure line is tightened down, all you got to do is tighten this 10 mil nut here and then the other one in the rear. Cool. Okay, so now it's time to put the low pressure line on. Just remove the cap. And it's a quick disconnect. So you just push it on just like that and snug it into place so it clicks, just like that. Alright, so now you get your pigtail. You clip it onto the pump. And take the other side. Clip it in, and then don't forget to lock it. Put the lock in. And you can put this, zip tie it wherever you like. Alright, so the last final steps, what you're going to want to do is you're going to tighten down your 10 millimeter bolt here, 10 millimeter bolt here, reconnect your PCV hose, zip tie this connector here to this bung, and then you're going to reconnect your negative battery terminal.